Hello, everybody. This is Les Kais with FortitudeRx, and today we are going to talk about how to find the right mindset for your lifting. We have all had those off days in the gym where we can't quite get into the right headspace, and today me and Tyler are going to talk about some of our experiences with this and some of the things that we have done to create productive sessions and get through some of these bad humps with our mindsets.
Buckle up and get ready to smash your health and fitness goals. This is FortitudeRx Radio, bringing you engaging conversations that inspire you to take action and take control. Physical and mental resilience, strength, nutrition, rehab, mindset, and more. We've got the prescription. This is FortitudeRx Radio. Here are your hosts, Tyler Campbell and Les Kais.
So, we've all had those days where we have a lack of focus, we might have a lack of care, we might be too nervous, we might even be too excited. I know I've had plenty of days in the gym where I have really hyped up a big session and I've been thinking about it all day. I get to the gym and everything just feels off. I feel off mentally, and I've had plenty of days where I just basically threw in the towel and just quit to come back another day. Sometimes that can be beneficial if you might be at risk of injury or things really might be bad and traumatic. But I can also say that I've had some of those days where I just simply gave up and I didn't really even come back and finish the session, and I really didn't create any productivity out of it. It just kind of led me down a downward spiral of a lot of bad sessions in a row. Today, I'd like to kind of touch on how we can make some of these sessions productive and still chase down our goals even on off days. Or even if we're really, really on, but we're so on that we're too excited, too amped up, and that causes us to screw up, that can be a big issue too. Tyler, have you had any experience with any of these types of issues before?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think a big thing that a lot of people have experienced is the feeling of waking up when you're or about to go to the gym, whatever it is, and you feel awesome physically. You're like, oh, I'm going to crush this workout. And you get there and it feels terrible for some reason, and you don't really know why. And that really dampens the mood a lot for the entire workout, where, you could shift around things like we're going to talk about here. But you also have these days where you feel terrible physically and mentally, and you go in and suddenly it feels great because you've done something probably to change how you're going to react to it. It's definitely an experience I think we've all had where things don't line up right for some reason, and you sort of have to find ways around it to actually be productive, like you're saying. So I've definitely had these experiences before where, especially recently for me, even having main lifts go well and then just being done with the day and being like, okay, that was good enough. And you just sort of finish the day with doing nothing at all. And it becomes unproductive despite the initial productivity. So I think a big part of it for me is figuring out how to maintain productivity for the entire workout rather than just part of it.
Yeah, so I've actually noticed a trend where if I feel really good physically and mentally, that's almost the days I need to worry the most, because my level of intent seems to somewhat go down. So if I feel like I'm firing on all cylinders physically and mentally, my actual focus lacks just a little bit because I almost expect for things to go well. Whereas I've had plenty of sessions where I have to hit a number I've never hit before or a really challenging session, and I didn't sleep good. Life has just beat me down, and I have a whole bunch of variables that aren't in my favor. I actually tend to do really well on those days because my actual focus and my energy is able to funnel towards achieving what I need to achieve. So I've almost found that for me personally, I have to kind of fabricate some level of stress to get in the right headspace to accomplish what I need to get done for that day. If I feel too good, I'm probably going to screw it up towards my top set.
Yeah, no, I know what you mean exactly. I think part of that is almost the not the cue, but the lightweight baby, that thing is the fact that really that may actually throw you off into thinking that you could be relaxed and not go as hard and stuff like that, when really it might be better that you should think about it as this is going to feel terrible. Therefore, I need to shore up everything I'm doing and focus.
Absolutely.
So if you're feeling awesome and things like that, it may be that you actually need to to readjust how you view what you're doing, because it can be very hard and throw you off if you don't get your mind right to focus on the task at hand.
Yeah, and I think the tricky thing is a lot of people expect for some of these sessions to feel good. They don't have to feel good; they just have to move good. So if you pick something up and it feels really, really heavy, it's kind of an unnatural thing to put hundreds of pounds on your back or in your hands and then try to move it around. So it shouldn't actually always feel good. You just have to have the right intent for it to move good. So sometimes when it does feel like crap, if you can just accept this is going to feel like crap, but I'm going to get the job done anyway, that alone can somewhat help you, because you shouldn't really go into these sessions expecting for them to feel good. You don't really like deserve for iron weight on you to feel good.
Yeah, it's about making it hard, and like it's going to be uncomfortable because it's supposed to be, just for the mental side of that thing anyway.
Right. Maybe some of these issues are caused by outside influences. Sometimes it's simply just us, and we can just shift our mindset around in the gym. We'll kind of talk about some of that stuff. But maybe it's life beating you down. Maybe it's money problems. Maybe it's some kind of like major trauma. And it might even be just something as simple as like somebody gave you some advice, somebody doubted you. And I'm kind of going to go into the whole advice thing and what to do about when somebody does tell you something. I know that for me, if somebody says that I can't do something, it's going to piss me off and I'm probably going to get it done. So the power of doubt, you can use that to your advantage or you can let it just crumble you. But it's up to you to decide which one you're going to do with that. I know when somebody tells me you can't lift that weight or you're not going to hit more reps than me, it makes me feel as though I'm challenged. And when I'm challenged, kind of going back to what we were just talking about a minute ago, that's going to help me actually tap into a different mindset. So if feeling challenged is something that you find helps you, look for those challenges. Maybe find a workout partner that simply will just talk crap to you. If feeling challenged like that does not help you, then you might want to try to avoid those things and try to figure out how to disassociate and try to just shut that voice off. When you get words of advice that you don't really want to hear, how I like to view advice is imagine yourself at a friend's house for dinner and they hand you a plate of food. It has a whole bunch of food on it. You might not want some of it, but you're going to take that plate back to the table anyway. You eat what you want and then you throw away later when no one's looking what you didn't want. That's the same way that you can view advice or people talking crap or whatever. There might be a gold nugget in some of these pieces of advice that people give you, but ultimately you don't have to really confront anybody. You don't have to make a scene. You don't have to let it bother you. You don't take that plate and you don't throw a fit like, oh, I didn't want all these things. You just simply take it. You just move on. You throw away what you didn't need later on and you just disassociate from it completely. So if somebody is doubting you or gives you advice and tells you this is how to do this or this is not how to do this or you're not going to achieve this, whatever it may be, you just need to take it and just throw it away. Or if you find some gold nuggets, take it and run with it, so on and so forth. It's pretty common for in the gym space for people to give unsolicited advice. So I don't want to say that you shouldn't listen to any of it at any point, but sometimes you're going to actually learn a little bit if you have an open mind and you can use it to your advantage. Most of the time, like I said, just take it, throw it away when no one's paying attention.
Yeah, and I think that this sort of goes into the mental model idea of really understanding that you are in control of how you respond to other people, and you get to decide what matters to you. When in a relationship, for instance, if someone says, you made me sad, or something along those lines, that's not really the case. What happened is that they did something and you became sad as a result of how you viewed what they did. All of your responses to things like that are always based on how you view the world and how you view that person. So if you respect someone a lot and they give you advice that goes against what you believe in, you're going to take that to heart negatively, harder than you would for a random stranger at the gym or something along those lines. So it depends on the person, it depends on the advice, but you still control what you use and how you react to things. And so doing that gives you the control over yourself and therefore what you do when it comes to challenging yourself from there.
Yeah, and a lot of times you're going to hear things from your training partners, your closest friends, your family, that you don't like, that you don't want to hear, that bother you, that might impact your lifting, it might shift your views, but you're the only person that can set your own goals and decide of what you want to achieve. So if somebody tells you that you can't do it, it doesn't mean you have to just like cut that person off completely. It just means that they have a different perspective than you. And this is an opportunity for you to just simply prove them wrong, but you prove them wrong with action, not words. So if you're confiding in somebody with, I might be at a 500 squat, but I plan on squatting 800 pounds one day, and your friend looks at you and says, no, you can't do that. You can just say, like, you know what, actually, he's right. I probably won't, and just give up. Or you can just keep, now that you can't really entrust that person to inspire you and push you forward, that person is just going to kind of bring you down. Doesn't mean that they're a bad person. It just means that they don't understand your true passion. So you have to now know, okay, I don't entrust talking about these things with this person. I'm going to just simply work my ass off to prove them wrong over a long period of time. And you can use those things in the gym to make you better.
Yeah, so I think this is basically the idea of external motivations and things like that that are strong to keep you moving in the gym and keep your mentality going. Where some people may need internal only, where they have self doubt and things along those lines. But you can even take self doubt because you have the whole two minds thing. Essentially, people are always talking to themselves, and that's normal to have that other voice going on. You can choose to not listen to that voice that's not in your control and talk back to it, or show that voice it's wrong. And when you do that, you have the chance to basically reset how you view yourself, and that's what you're doing for external needs as well, or external people as well. You're not only having to rely on internal motivation or external motivation, you can use both in the same ways.
Getting into some of these bad days where maybe you just simply do not even care about the session. You have a lot going on in your life. You know you need to go to the gym. You're exhausted. You get to the gym and you really just don't care to be there. You do have to take a step back, and we've talked about this in a previous episode. You need to reflect on if your actual long-term goals are more important than your current feelings and disassociate that. And sometimes it's okay to just simply scale back on the day and just get something done. I've had plenty of days where I had to hit some huge top set, but maybe I was super stressed, I didn't sleep well, and I'm at the risk of injury. So I get halfway through my warm-ups and I realize, okay, like this top set's just not going to happen. You can get frustrated, you can pack your bag and go home, or you can refocus and just get something done that still helps you move forward. It just might not be a 10 out of 10 session. Sometimes having a 5 or a 6 out of 10 effort session is going to be better than having a 0 out of 10. So sometimes you need to stop looking at it as good session or bad session, and just, this is just a session. This is just one that I'm just getting done, and it's going to keep building slow momentum towards some of those better sessions.
Yeah, I think that goes along with something I recently heard about reacting to your own situations and emotions and things like that, where, and again, this goes back to our previous episode with neutrality, but just view these things as expected. Like, you should expect to be sad sometimes. You should expect to be happy sometimes. You should expect to have bad sessions and good sessions, but these things shouldn't be labeled as bad or good. They should be labeled just as sessions, like you just said, because they are part of the expectation of progress and how things go. It's a wave that trends up, not a straight line that goes straight up. Otherwise, you'll come crashing back down, obviously, with the way progress really happens. But the idea here is that you should be allowing yourself to view these sessions and these motions as part of the human experience and part of the fitness experience, as opposed to letting it derail you.
Yeah, I have plenty of athletes that they'll reach out and say, "Hey, I had a really long day at work and I'm exhausted and all these things. So I did my main lift and I did one or two accessories, or I might have done a circuit. I might have just done everything really light, got it done fast, and I got out of there." And I usually commend those people because, good on them. They still got in there. They still got something done. I think the trick here, though, is this can be confused with just straight up laziness, and you can get in the habit of, I'm tired, so I'll just do this every single time. So you don't want to just completely lean on the fact that, oh, I'm having a hard day, I'll just take it easy today and just get into a rhythm of that. You might have some of those days where you need to push it just a little bit more than you're comfortable with. And that's where like the whole like one more rep thing can come into play, where sometimes on some of these sessions, what I'll do instead of just getting it done, I'll get it done. But on my last thing that I do for the day, I'll do one more rep or push 30 seconds longer than what I initially planned. This way I can start to build myself towards those better sessions instead of just accepting that I'm going to have just this plain bland session all the time. So it's fine to have these sessions, but still try to put some element of challenge in there so that you can build back up to having actual good sessions again.
I definitely struggle with this pretty often, where if I have a bad session that just sort of keeps on going down and down and down, it gets worse and worse, as opposed to just sort of being bad and then I'm just blah. Because I do try to stay there and get something done, but when I don't, it feels worse. So you have to have something there that flips that switch into being either like creating more stability for an exercise or doing something that puts you in a position that makes things easier for you to get work done or something like that, where it's like, so say you have like a split squat, a Bulgarian split squat with a band on the rear foot sort of thing, where it's very unstable and it frustrates you to even try to do it. So why not just switch to an upper extremity supported split squat so that you have way more stability, way more control over it, and things like that, where you can then just get some work done without feeling so frustrated by it. And then you'll feel good that way. You didn't quit. You did some work that was probably more effective anyway.
Absolutely.
So that's what I tend to try to do when I think about it.
It also will actually help me too. If I can just do one thing that I didn't feel like doing that day, that will also kind of give me some sense of accomplishment, which will also kind of help me get out of these ruts. So if I get through the session and I know like I really don't want to do this core work, but I just simply do like one thing that I know I need to do for my core. Not only did I get something done that I knew I needed to get done, but it also helped me get out of that rut by doing something I was uncomfortable doing. I have one lifter right now that she actually said she's doing one thing every single day through the summer that she hates doing. And she is like 3 days into it. She chose running. She's like 3 days into it. She said like she feels more empowered than ever by tackling something that she didn't feel like doing. And it's kind of helping her get out of a rut because she did a workout with running and it kind of messed with her. Now she's running and putting herself in that uncomfortable position, and it's helping her propel towards better and better sessions.
You just gave me a good idea here. You know, Lent, the religious thing for Ash Wednesday and all that stuff to Easter, when you take something out that you are usually having that you shouldn't have, quote unquote, reverse Lent is adding something in that you know you need to do and you haven't been doing. And that's going to lead to more progress than you just taking something out random, because it's about constraint. What about challenging yourself every day to get better and better? Seems almost more restrictive in a positive way than just taking something out to me. But, you know,
Absolutely.
I don't know. Just a thought off the top of my head.
So I've actually had a lot of sessions where I was doing so well that I ended up actually sabotaging the workout by doing too much. I was curious if you've ever done anything like that.
Absolutely. I think that's probably one of my biggest programming downfalls for myself, in that when I'm not specifically following something that I've written, I am very good at overdoing it intra-session, and over the course of a block or a cycle, those things add up really easily. So I end up hurting myself because of these single session, way overdoing it sort of things that are either way too high RPE too often, or I'm able to handle the volume at a high RPE in that 1 hour period versus over the course of 7 days or 4 weeks or something like that. So I'm good at working hard in the moment, but then not good at recovering from it. But I never adjust for it unless I'm like really diligent about it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so this is why I think I'd like to touch on here that it's really important to have some structure or some sort of coach or guidance, something along those lines, because one of my biggest downfalls myself is I might hit some crazy top set or hit a PR or something like that. And then I keep thinking, okay, I can do more now, or I can do another rep, or I can do more weight. And I end up failing which basically ends up ruining my session. So I've had plenty of sessions where maybe I had to squat and bench, right? I hit a big squat PR, feel great, going into bench. I'm thinking, all right, cool. I'm having a good day. Now I can PR on bench too. Instead of just sticking to my plan of, all right, I'm just going to hit this top set. Maybe I load 5 or 10 more pounds than what my initial top set is. I end up failing. So I've had plenty of sessions like that where I have a big win and I keep trying to push the envelope, but it ends up resulting in failure, which I then end up beating myself up about, which then carries into the next session and kind of leads me downhill. So I think it's also important to touch on, if you get a win, maybe not push it and maybe not keep trying to beat that PR or get another rep, only if you know it's there or only if it's appropriate time to do so. If you have a win and if you have a good session, go ahead and hang it up on that win, hang it up on that good session. I've actually started a rule where I have the tendency of, I'll push my session so hard that I pretty much walk out of the gym feeling like crap. But like you said, it's hard to recover from that. So I actually will scale myself back. If I want to do 2 hour long workout, if I cut it at an hour and 40 minutes, that will still make me feel like I achieved something, but I had just a little bit left in the tank to carry over into my next session, to recover, to still feel good, so on and so forth. So sometimes scaling yourself back on these really good days and just accepting, all right, this was a win, this was a good day, I can now move on from it. That can help you build some momentum as well.
Yeah, and I think these good days have something that leads up to them. It's not on the day that you are suddenly just great and you need to take that and run with it. You've done things to lead up to this point over the course of probably 2 weeks or so that'll lead you into that. So just continue on that trend line rather than blasting yourself up and then getting back into this hole that you need to climb out of again. Because what I think a good day generally is showing is basically that you are on a right track, not that you need to suddenly PR. So don't take yourself off of that track and do something like that. You need to scale back. You need to be within that minimum effective dose and also maximum recoverable volume or intensity, however you want to look at it. You need to be in that range and actually get something out of it that keeps you going with momentum rather than finding random times to like blast yourself into a hole, basically.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So some of the last few things that I wanted to touch on is whether you are feeling down and sluggish, or you might be overstimulated and very angry or very excited or nervous, so on and so forth. What are some things that we can do to help you when you're sluggish versus help you when you're overstimulated? My biggest thing really is going to be my music choice and how I am breathing. Also, kind of how I move, and I'll get to that in a moment. So, if I'm feeling really sluggish and down, something that I'll do to kind of get me up is something that just simply elevates my heart rate and gets me moving. So I might have days where I feel stiff, I feel groggy, I feel cranky, and I just can't really get moving comfortably. If I do something like a bike or a row or anything that gets my heart rate elevated slightly, gets me feeling a little bit lighter on my feet. Maybe I listen to some fast paced music. Maybe I listen to some angry music, and I start to get a sense of feeling active. That will help me start propelling towards the mindset that I need to get in to move some weight around. Um, Versus there's plenty of days too where I feel super angry or I feel really excited or overstimulated, might even be jittery. Those days you might not want to blast your heavy metal music. You might want to save that for like a top set or something. Listen to something that calms you down. Slow your breathing down. Work on your visualization and just move a little bit slower. So, one rule that I have for these days where I might feel jittery or angry or really hyped up, or a lifter that I'm coaching, I'm sensing that they're feeling this way. I'll simply tell them, listen to some slow music, something that calms you down, slow your breathing down, and slow your movement down. And one good example of that is a squat. So if you're about to unrack something that you've never unracked before, or it's some PR, or it's really heavy or whatever, and you're really, really amped up, you're really jittery, you're probably going to unrack it really fast, walk it out really fast, brace really fast. You're probably going to get pitched forward in the hole. Versus if you can use all of this anger, jitter, excitement, use it to your advantage and just slow yourself down, you're probably going to set yourself up for success there. So if you're feeling overstimulated, just slow your breathing down, try to come back down to planet Earth, and just try to move slower. Unrack the bar, hold it for a second, walk out slower, slow down your bracing, feel yourself get tight, really feel yourself in the moment, and don't just let yourself be consumed by this rage or excitement to where you self sabotage yourself. Do you have any issues with either being too calm or too stimulated?
Yeah, for sure. There's a certain range for arousal that people need to realize that they have, and it's not a general one. It's more of an individual one. So some people may do really, really well with super calm lifting. Bryce Lewis comes to mind. He may have an arousal range that's something like a 1 to a 5 out of 10, whereas uh, other people like old school Pete Rubish in the basement, uh, he's probably an arousal level of a 7 to a 10 where he works his best. No longer though. He's now much calmer. But for me, I'm probably in the range of somewhere in the 4 to an 8. Whereas if I get way out of my range to a 10, I will, like you said, get all wobbly on a squat. I won't get a good bench setup, things along those lines. Deadlift, I tend to be able to get to a 10 and do fine with, because I'm more comfortable with my form. I'm more comfortable with my bracing than I am with the squat in that case. So I think that what you need to do is you need to do some sort of subjective measuring and objective. You can write this sort of stuff down in training logs and things like that, but it's really just a feeling. It's almost like an RPE value for your training session that is your arousal level. And when you feel yourself going out of that, either below it or above it, you need to find your way back into that range so that you're able to productively be ready to go. So if you're way below it, you need to turn it up via music, like you said. If you're way above it, you need to slow it down with other music or with diaphragmatic breathing, things along those lines. Something I've used before with regards to being too low prior to like a big set would be hyperventilation purposefully. So if I feel like I need to get my heart rate up, I'll just do really quick breathing, just through pursed lips, both inhale and exhale. And that'll get your heart rate up and ready to go. And it sort of just gives you some adrenaline for that moment. It's just something you'd want to use very rarely, and otherwise try to get in a headspace. But that's something I use prior to actually going down and setting up to get to lift the bar. It's definitely more dangerous to me to be above your arousal range than it is to be below it. So something like caffeine is useful for getting you to a certain point, I think, mostly psychologically though. So studies have shown that caffeine as an actual performance enhancer is useful when you get to the like 6 milligrams per kilogram of body weight. So for me, that would be something like 660 milligrams, which would totally destroy my workouts. There may be some sort of performance enhancement if I were to somehow be able to like rein that in, but that would put me on like a 13 out of 10. So it's not possible for me to use that. So when you do use pre-workout, it's likely only helping you in a psychological way to prevent tiredness or just have that feeling of something. But it's not necessarily going to be useful to just take more and more. So unless you're able to handle that huge amount, take some that lands you in your range rather than way out of it.
And I like that you touched on somewhat of the individual lift stuff, because people need to do a little bit of testing and take some notes on how well they performed in different arousal states for each lift. For me personally, I need to get up to like a 7 or an 8 out of 10 when I squat. I need to be very emotionally invested, really dig deep, draw up some anger, but still have some level of calm and composed in there. And that's why I always love to say to lift with composed aggression. Now, for bench, for me, I just simply need to execute. I don't need to get very hyped up. I just need to remember my cues and feel good and feel strong and feel confident. So for squats, I might listen to some like crazy, really hardcore heavy metal that gets my heart rate up, really makes me feel like the man. For bench, it might just be something a little bit slower paced that just keeps me in the zone. I don't need to be at an 8 out of 10. I need to be at like a 4 or 5 out of 10. And then for deadlift, I just need to have fun. I just need to feel cocky and strong I don't need to be super angry, super amped up because I'm probably going to rush something. But I also can't be too calm where I was with bench on deadlift because I'm probably not going to really just try as hard. So if you can start to find what arousal state works well for each lift, then you can start to play with some of these things on the music, the breathing, the caffeine intake, so on and so forth. Uh, and that'll help you have more consistent sessions for these lifts as well.
One thing that I wanted to mention was the whole flipping the switch idea, where you're either on or you're off when it comes to arousal states, when it's really that range, but it's also a dimmer switch that you can sort of control through some of these techniques with breathing and music and caffeine, things along those lines, where if you feel yourself somewhere that you don't want to be, you can slightly adjust these things. You don't have to be way off or way on, just sort of get a little bit of extra edge there, back off again, come into it. The only switch that I would ever use is the one that's directly after a big set that you need to recover from that immediately to prepare for your next set. And it depends on what you're doing in your day, obviously, in your session, but you need to be able to go from your top line range, say it's my 4 to 8. So if I'm at my 8 for a big set of squats, and then I have more sets of squats to do after that, you need to be able to immediately turn that back down to a 4 once you rack the
Mm-hmm.
bar. You can't just stay up for the next 5 minutes of rest. Otherwise, it's going to basically blast you out with adrenal fatigue, and you're not going to have anything left arousal wise to finish your workout. So if you do way overdo it in the beginning lifts, the supplements and the accessories may not have the opportunity to use any of your arousal to finish the workout and be productive. So you need those things to obviously fill in your programming in a meaningful way.
Absolutely. And you can also get too aroused too quick, even just before like a top set. I've had that happen before where I went ahead and threw on my headphones and I was getting angry and all pumped up when I had 135 on the bar. You know,
Mhm.
you start hearing songs that really like get your blood going. They start to give you chills, but you only have 200 pounds on the bar. So once by the time you get to 500 and 600 pounds, that sense of arousal is already gone. So try not to lean into that arousal too early for sure.
When it comes to finding your best mentality for lifting, it's really just a range of things, is what we're saying, in that you have to have an awareness of who you are as a person. I think, I'm calm most of the
Mhm.
time in my day to day, but I absolutely do use higher arousal levels for certain things. And it also depends on how well you recover from that, both in the session, like I just said, but also in between sessions. So I can't use that 8 out of 10. And for deadlift, for me, I'll say I can go to a 10 out of 10. Basically, I can dissociate as much as I want to on deadlift and like completely be like out of this world, sort of aroused. That sounds ridiculous. Basically be out of this world, like in my head, ready to lift and freak out and do it, and it'll go great. The other lifts, not so much, but I can only do that every like month or so, or even less than that. Usually, it's usually like every few months I'll hit some big lift and I'll use that. Might yell at the bar, that sort of thing. Whereas some people might be able to recover from doing it every single time they're at the gym. I cannot. I absolutely don't have that in me socially, for one, but also just in my head and like just having my sense of calm that I need in general in life. So the finding your mental space for lifting is going to be super individualized based on what you can recover from as part of it.
Absolutely. Yeah, I always tell my wife that I need two high arousal sessions per week, one with a barbell and one without. So I need one barbell workout a week where I can really get my head, really blow off some steam, and then I need one bodybuilding, CrossFit, whatever type session where I'm not really beating myself up with load, but I'm beating myself up with just effort and speed and intensity. If I have those two sessions per week, I recover well from it. I feel good. I can go into the next week with a clear mind. If I don't get those two sessions at all, then I just feel off and groggy and kind of grumpy because I didn't get to blow off steam. But if I do it more than 2 times per week, then I just get beat up and I can't go into the next week because I feel like crap. So the last thing that I want to talk about was visualization. Everybody's heard about visualization, and a lot of us can benefit from visualizing things going really well. I know one weird, quirky thing that I do is when I have a number in mind, let's say 600 squat, because I really wanted a 600-pound squat going into my last meet, I actually visualized exactly what the plates on the bar looked like. Thought about what it's going to look like when I unrack it, how it's going to feel on my back, how I'm going to brace. I could picture it in my head very clearly and very vividly how the entire thing was going to look with me accomplishing it. I did eventually accomplish it, went great, so on and so forth. But we're all going to fail at some point. So I think it can also be very helpful if we also visualize from time to time what it's going to look like if we fail. This way we can accept it and we can know how we're going to handle that. You don't want to just fail a big PR or whatever it may be and throw a fit and get upset and let it ruin you. Chances are, if you're attempting something, you're probably able to get it or close to getting it. It's not like you're just going to attempt something that's just outlandish and you have no business doing it. You're probably in the ballpark of aiming for it. Now, if you fail it, it doesn't mean you're never going to get it done. It just means you need to disassociate that failure from the work that you've done and just move on from it. One of the best powerlifters ever, Steffi Cohen, she actually is who I heard this from because she had a sports therapist that told her to visualize failing big lifts, and it actually made her not as nervous to go after some of these PRs because she already knew what it would look like if she failed, and she was then able to just disassociate those feelings of nervous, anxious, and just go after it with purpose. So sometimes you should actually picture yourself, what is it going to look like if I don't get this? Can I handle it? Chances are you can. You just have to work through those feelings. This way you can eventually set yourself up to visualize crushing it and getting that goal accomplished.
Visualization of success and failure are two sides of the same coin, in that you can use both, and one may need to come before the other depending on who you are and what you respond to. And again, this may just be a practice thing and see which thing works for you, because sometimes one of the issues with things like sharing your goals with people and saying to yourself or really visualizing in your mind that you are going to get this lift, or that you're picturing yourself literally getting it, can provide the same mental relief of getting there already. And that can make you complacent with it. It'll feel as if you've already accomplished this thing that you haven't accomplished. And that's the same idea as sharing goals with people and saying, I want to hit this number. Even if they don't say anything about it, you just saying it out loud almost gives you that same dopamine release of accomplishing that lift. And so it may not be useful because you may literally not try to get it later on. Whereas if you're thinking about or visualizing what could go wrong during the lift itself, it could also give you the chance to tighten up your form. It give you the chance to shore up your cues that keep those things from happening, which sort of ties back into the feeling from the beginning of this episode where you feel like it might be hard today. So you shore that up and figure it out before it happens. So that covers our mentality with lifting episode. I think that you basically need to find your sweet spot and objectively measure these things, subjectively measure them, and figure out exactly who you are as a person and how you handle things to best land yourself in this range that gives you productive sessions that make you stay on this trend line of progress rather than sharp ups and downs. So from FortitudeRx Radio, this is Tyler and Les signing off.
Thanks for tuning in to another episode of FortitudeRx Radio. You're officially one step closer to conquering your goals and living your best life. For more info or to connect with your hosts, check out FortitudeRx.com. We'll see you next time.